Good evening. My name is Dennis Aseto. Welcome to this edition as we talk about matters to do with education in the country. Remember, this week President William Ruto received the Presidential Working Party that was dealing with matters education, who went across the 47 counties to take your views on how best we can improve on our education in this country. To have this conversation with me is Dr. Jen Imbunya, curriculum expert, and Professor Peter Baraza from Alupe University, who will just be dissecting this report as we make sense on the improvements in this report, how to proceed moving forward, and most importantly, how we can make our education remain being the most revered document and curriculum across the world. But before we get to discussing this report, the government announced the reduction of learning areas for the entire basic education from a high of 14 to a maximum of 9 under the competency-based curriculum now, while announcing the changes as he received the final report by the Presidential Working Party on education reforms. President William Ruto said the move is a consequence of outcry by the public. According to the recommendations by the Raphael Munavu-led Working Party, pre-primary will have a high of 5 subjects, junior school 9 and senior school 7 learning areas. Shadrach sets the stage for a discussion this evening on reforming the education sector.
After nearly a year of collecting and compiling views of various stakeholders, the Presidential Working Party on education reforms finally handed over its final report to the President, whose recommendations contained sweeping reforms in the entire education sector.
Today is really a milestone because, Your Excellency, we are sharing with you a report that is very unique. A report that touches on milestones of transformative education for sustainable development.
Under the proposed reforms, grade 6 learners will sit the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment KPSEA solely for monitoring their progress. The assessment will not in any way inform their transition to the next level, as the progress to junior secondary will be automatic. The report has further recommended for the reforming and renaming of the Kenya National Examination Council to the Kenya National Assessment Council. At the end of junior secondary, learners will sit a final assessment, which will make up to 60% of their final score. The remaining 40% will be from assessment conducted at the end of grade 7 and 8. The summative result will give the learner their final score and will be important in informing which senior secondary school they will join.
We now stand at the threshold of tremendous possibility for our nation. Before us is a strong case to transform our society and catalyze our economy by making necessary interventions in education to make it accessible, equitable, inclusive, and aligned with our aspirations to become a more open, democratic, prosperous nation of free and enlightened citizens.
This is a big deviation from the previous arrangement, which had recommended that the final assessment carries only 40% of the final mark, as the remaining 60 be fetched from the classroom assessment. At grade 12, which is the end of a senior secondary, there will be a summative assessment which will carry 70% of the final mark. The remaining 30% will be from the school-based assessment and competencies learners will have shown through their education journey. Changes in the structure and arrangement of assessment were informed by the concerns raised over the integrity of school-based assessments following fears of compromised scores uploaded by teachers to the Kenya National Examination Council portal.
The moment has come for us to usher in a new era where our education system appreciates that competitiveness and productivity depend on such values as innovation, which is nurtured by encouraging curiosity and imagination, and by allowing learners to explore their gifts and talents.
The report has further recommended a significant reduction in the number of subjects to be taught in primary and secondary schools. Initially, learners in grades 1 to 3 were required to take up to 8 subjects, with those in upper primary taking 10 compulsory subjects. Junior secondary had 12 compulsory subjects. However, the report has recommended 5 subjects in pre-primary, 7 subjects for grade 1 to grade 3, and 8 subjects for grade 4 to grade 6. Junior secondary will have a maximum of 9 subjects, while senior secondary learners will have 7 subjects, depending on the pathway of their choices.
Learning areas like maybe Mandarin, all those foreign languages, sports, art and sports, you know. The moment, those were the new learning areas that were coming into the activity, I mean CBC. So if you remove them, then you lose the spirit of that curriculum.
Shadrach Miti, KT News.
Thank you, Shadrach, for that report, which sets the basis and the stage for this conversation. Remember that in studio with me is Dr. Jenny Mbunya, curriculum expert and director quality assurance at Kaimosi Friends University. And joining us from our Eldoret Bureau offices is Professor Peter Baraza from Alupe University. Welcome again. Now, let me just start with you, Dr. Jane. Now, as we talk about these new reforms in the education sector, question that first of all goes into, that people are asking is, were their views captured in this document? Because people say, like every other day when research is being done, I wasn't consulted. Do you think the views of Kenyans was actually captured in this document?
Thank you very much, Dennis, for that very insightful question. But before I answer, I should take 1 minute just to give my special greetings to the Kenyan population. And these are special greetings in a new era, new dawn of education in this country. First of all, I must say thank you so much to all the Kenyans in the 47 counties plus the diaspora who opened their workspaces, their schools, their homes, and their private spaces so that we could be able to interact with them. To answer that question and to be very precise about it, we managed to visit all the 47 counties in Kenya, and we added yet another 1 more county, which was the diaspora. However, my fellow Kenyans, I would say this. We may not have been able to reach you because it was not a census, so we used a sample. But I want to assure all Kenyans that even if we did not reach you, we managed to get to your county, and that 1 or 2 people who we sampled share the same views with you or share the same standpoint with you as concerned the education system. So I can say without even blinking my eye that what we heard from the Kenyans fully informed the document that we came up with as the report and the recommendations. And I can assure you Kenyans are very well educated, they're very much informed. What they gave us is what we packaged, albeit bringing in our expertise as curriculums, trying to be the arbiters and coming up with the very best.
And I think let me just go straight to Prof. And Prof, now with this document, as we continue to dissect through it, are we able to say that this document therefore then will go into healing the problems in our education sector? Because we see that the system is changing to 2663. Also, we see that the number of subjects will reduce. Will these heal the issues that Kenyans have continued to raise with regard to our curriculum in the education sector?
Thank you, Dennis. Allow me to begin like my sister did, first by thanking the appointing authority for giving us an opportunity and a privilege among many other Kenyans who have the capacity to do what we did, to carry out what was given to us as a task to ensure that we heal the issues you are raising. I want, before I answer your question, to explore, to say a little more about what my sister has said. Did we reach Kenyans? Are we carrying the views of Kenyans? And Kenyans certainly spoke to us very different categories of Kenyans who are sampled, be they religious organizations, be they local leadership, be it the county governments, because we had governors on board in each county we went to. We spoke to teachers' unions. We spoke to experts in every aspect of education. And more important, we invited everyone, if they couldn't reach us in person, to write to us. And I think we spoke to everybody else that we needed to speak to. But like my sister said, you can't speak to everybody, so we sampled to be able to reach a cross-section of Kenyans and speak to them. Now, to answer your question, our structure is not 2663, as you said. Our structure is actually 26333, meaning pre-primary 2, primary 6, and then junior school 3, senior school 3, and university a minimum of 3 years. With regard to the reduction of the number of subjects, certainly this was informed by, again, the views of the Kenyan populace. The Kenyan populace thought and believed that that the CBC curricula, as it was, had a lot of subjects that the young people were doing. I do acknowledge what was said earlier, that we should keep the uniqueness of CBC, but what our report has said, that KICD, with the help of other experts in the area of curriculum development, they should be able to sit and see which areas, learning areas, will be merged, which aspects of education can be integrated in some of the subjects that exist, and still retain that which makes CBC unique.
All right, Prof, thank you for that. And let me just come to Daktari in the studio, let's talk about the entire process of education. We're just not talking about education, but quality education. And this comes with enrollment of pupils to school, that is our children, and also the employment of teachers, which we know has always been a bigger problem in this country. And let me just go through some stats. And enrollment per class, that is pre-primary, is 30 per class. Primary 40, junior school 45. And it is well enumerated down here. But the question is, do we have the capacity? While you were collecting these information and views, we know capacity has always been a problem. What are your recommendations to the government moving forward? We also acknowledge that during the budget process, the education sector got the biggest chunk of this budget.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for that very insightful question. But before I answer it, I please beg to just add a small radar to what Professor Baraza has already spoken to. I wish to let the Kenyans know that for the first time since independence, having had several working parties, task forces, and ad hoc committees on education, this is the first ever working party on education since independence that also involved the learners themselves. This is the first ever that we had those pupils coming and speaking to us, telling us what their problems are, and going a step further to give us probable ways in which those issues can be solved. Number two, this is the working party that we had unfettered access to the head of state himself. We met him more than 5 times, to all the offices in the government, and to any other player in the education sector. And that is why we proudly confirm to the Kenyans that the product we have, given the positive uptake that we have from the Kenyan population, is a working document that shall take the education value chain of this country to another level. Now, getting back to your question, the question... capacity and the enrollment in the schools. That has been a challenge since independence. But in this document, what we handled were the TORs that we were given at the onset. And one of them was to come up with ways in which the EMIS can spot out a child right from the time of birth to the completion. Whether they go into the completion of the education system, whether they go into a private school or a government school, we should be able to track that student or that particular child. And that is going to help us, because the number of dropouts we had about, that was based on the report that we got from the World Bank and UNESCO concerning Kenya, were very alarming. So I believe once that recommendation is implemented, that should just handle that problem. And when it comes to capacity building, you know, I wish to let all Kenyans listening to us and watching us this evening know that that is one part of the recommendation that the government already started implementing. Ideally, and I can say with all affirmation, that we have got a deficit of about 100,000 teachers, but so far the government has managed to give us 30,000 employed and 20-something thousand on internship. So that moving forward, and you know this is just in the first year, moving forward, I believe as we get into next year at such a time, in fact, we will have an overflow of the teachers. And this boils down to the implementation problem that we had. And in that same breath, it means it is actually one of the main implementation strategies that should assist in getting this new education system serve its purpose.
Now, Prof, let me come to you now. When you talk about teacher training, now the document says mandatory one-year training for compliance with the curriculum change for teachers who graduated before 2023. And further ahead is universities will stop offering diploma and certificate courses, only focus on degree. I mean, this is the entire education system. So how will, when it comes to teachers training, mandatory one-year training, previously teachers were supposed to pay from their pockets to go back to school to be able to teach CBC. Has the government addressed this, and did you address this issue?
Dennis, a little before I get to teacher training, which is my pet subject, because I'm a teacher educator, I just want to speak a little to the issues of numbers and capacities. I think this country is proud of one particular thing, that as a people, we have tried our best to ensure that no child is left behind with regard to going to school. And I think the numbers, the overwhelming numbers in class, the overflowing classrooms speak to the desire of parents to send their children to school. And therefore, our task as a nation should be to plan for these children and provide capacity and facilities for them to pursue learning so that we don't lose any child at all. And speaking to that also, then it means what Dr. Imbunya has said about teacher facilitating teachers who will teach these students is something that is going on extremely well. And the gap of 119,000 or so teachers within a couple of years, this government appears to be keen to meet that bit. Now, to come to the issue of teacher training, there are three aspects that we should think about here. That one, institutions that are preparing teachers who will handle CBC curricula must be aware that they continue to train. And as they continue to train, they are training using a different system of education or curriculum of education. They are not preparing teachers who will teach CBC. So the universities quickly must change within a year, and that is our recommendation, and ensure that any teacher leaving the university from 2024 onwards has some proper training to handle the CBC curriculum. In addition to that, we have teachers who are already out there Now, a teacher is prepared to handle all systems of education. But then CBC has some certain characteristics that require that the teacher understands that this is a learner-centered approach to learning. This is an approach or a system that requires learners to get competencies, skills, and value-based education at the end of the process that they are going through. So it is necessary, and it was necessary for this working party to attend to this matter, and that is why we recommended that there has to be a 1-year retooling of these teachers. And if you examine and read our recommendations, we have also gone ahead to suggest how this will be done by saying we should have KESTEM, which is the Kenya Educational School for Teacher Training and Management, and they will do the in-servicing of these teachers. And we have so many teachers' colleges, and with the help of the Ministry of Education, I believe that with a proper framework, we should be able to do this. Now, the issue of paying, when you say teachers have had to pay for in-service, that was something else. That was professional development as planned and prepared by the Teachers Service Commission at that time. In this particular case, we expect the Ministry of Education to work within the framework that the government will provide to ensure that these teachers actually are trained, and the issues of cost and what it will mean will be determined within the framework that the Ministry of Education will decide.
Now, thank you, Prof. Daktari, now we'll talk about quality assurance, and this is now your forte, this is your area. And from here we get quality assurance to be solely handled by the Ministry of Education, school heads and principals to be answerable to the Ministry of Education, TSC to consult Ministry of Education before transfers and deployment of teachers. Let me just pause there. We see even students going on the streets saying we don't want you to transfer our teacher because they are the ones that deliver. How are we going to implement this?
Thank you, Dennis. I will put clarity to your question, but just maybe so that I make Kenyans know, this is in addition to what Professor has spoken to. Now, there is a radical change. And every Kenyan child who is our child, our daughter and our son, who wrote their Form 4 last year and some years before last year, there's a radical change in the teacher college recruitment. Initially, we had a cluster, which made so many of these children of ours fail to get admission. That clustering of subjects has been removed. We have, if you have a C, that's all that you need to go into a teacher primary. The previous cluster of saying it must be a C+ in mathematics, a C+ in English, we realized that it had actually killed almost all the teacher training colleges. So I'm appealing to all our children, those who did not go to COOPS because you did not know of this new recommendation, get to those teacher training colleges and you will be admitted. And I want to say thank you so much to this government and the Ministry of Education for implementing this recommendation even before the government adopted the report. Now, getting back to your very sensitive question on in a nutshell, I can say in summary, the duplicated roles that we have been having between Ministry of Education and TSC. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, our recommendations are very clear. Because speaking to the teachers and many of the stakeholders, it became very apparent that the river must be taken back to its source. So TSC is going to handle the human resource, the HR aspect of the teachers. Recruit, deploy, redeploy the schemes of service. But managing the teacher falls now solely at the feet of the Ministry of Education. Issues quality assurance were one of the very disturbing factors when we went into the field. And I'll tell you why. TSC, according to the Act of 2013, quality assurance is supposed to be a responsibility of the ministry. But then the TSC Act also came in later and kind of shared that responsibility. But we realized that quality assurance is one of the weakest links, because TSC does quality assurance, Ministry of Education plays the same role. But then who acts on the recommendations and the reports? And to whom do you deliver these reports? So we took a radical decision to revert this role fully to the Ministry of Education, because we want quality, you know? We want intense learning. We want our schools to be monitored for evaluation. What is being taught to our children should give us value as a nation. And for those reasons, and for those particular reasons, TSC now plays the HR role, and Ministry of Education are the managers of education. And speaking to the issue concerning teachers, Professor Baraza has spoken on retooling. It is very important that we retool the teachers. I am one of those CBC champions who, from the beginning, I was very clear that we do not need to retrain teachers. Teachers need to be retooled. What do we mean? These teachers just need to be given new internal tools to handle classroom pedagogy, classroom teaching and learning in tandem with the 21st century classroom.
In short, what you're saying is teachers need a new software.
They need a new software, and in our recommendations, and I'm glad because even the Minister of Education, Mr. Machogo, is very excited about it. We are recommending that any other teacher who graduates as a teacher from whichever level, from 2022 going downwards, they will all have to be retooled. However, the retooling is taking a new model. We are going to use what we call rapid descent, right from the bottom. You don't have to travel to Nairobi to be retooled. The retooling will get you where you are.
Daktari, let's just take this short commercial break. When we come back, we talk about the issues to do with how to make a teacher a happy teacher and smile, because a happy teacher is a happy student and a performing student. When we come back, we'll be talking more about refocusing and reshaping, making better our education system. See you in a few.